Hello, we're going to talk today about the different elements of dance. These are basic fundamental concepts that you need to and will be addressing right away in any dance class, especially in beginning. These are basic fundamental things that they need to understand, be aware of, and start to develop strength in. But you're going to be looking back and repeating this through every level of dance class. It's great to take a moment at the beginning of a semester or just to stop in the middle of your year and to reiterate some of these really fundamental skills. It's good for all dancers to come back to the basics, right? And so we're going to start with the number one basic, which is centering. Yep, you're going to have to deal with centering first and foremost in all of your dance classes. So what is centering really? Basically, what is the definition? It is a sense of your body, your own body, holding on to balance. It allows you to move gracefully and to move freely. So where does center come from? Being able to identify that. Developing exercises or just opening, movements that will just help bring the dancer into their center and find it and have that as their starting place for class. And then we can start moving out. Once they find the center, then they can expand and move it outside of center. Because in dance, we always come back to center. So we need to establish it at the beginning and repeat it and remind the students over and over again, help them find it and develop a really good sense of their center. Because through movement, we are always coming back to center and then going off center. So I asked, where is the center? And if you think about the solar plexus, that is your center. It's the cluster of nerve cells and tissue behind the stomach. And for even young children, you can even mention that. You might not want to mention it the first day of class, because sometimes their head is going in so many different directions and they're distracted and this is so exciting. And so they're going to be missing a lot of what you're saying, even though they're trying so hard to listen. So you want to bring some of those bigger concepts in a little bit later when they've relaxed and they're used to the situation. But even young students can hear and enjoy some complex concepts like the solar plexus. We have a place here. Put your hands right here on your stomach. And right behind that stomach is something called a solar plexus. Can you say that with me? And this is a cluster of nerve cells that help us feel. And they help us, when we're moving, they help us feel off balance, but when we're steady and still, we can feel very balanced. And that's that center right here called blah, blah, blah. So you can find different ways to approach that and to teach it. The next is gravity. And this is really very important that students understand that gravity is pulling on them every single day, 24/7. And we're so used to it, we're completely unconscious about it. We're not aware of it. And certainly little children aren't aware of it. But how fun to understand that the earth has gravitational pull towards it. And we are all staying here on the earth because of this. What would happen if we didn't have gravity? And just that idea that we could float, we could do, what kinds of movements could you do if you didn't have gravity or the force of gravity that keeps our feet on the floor? So this is a really fun concept to play with, but having them to understand gravity, that we can give in to gravity, and movements look completely different when we release into gravity or when we're pulling up away from gravity and trying to be tall. So gravity, it is the forces you have to work with, but can create beautiful movements in their restrictions. So even though it is restrictive, it also causes a place for us to create some wonderful, beautiful movement because we are working with this force of gravity. This element actually is one of the reasons that we are able to create shape and rhythm and fall to the earth. And so and have low levels. It's this gravity. So it's a great thing too. All right, next on our list is balance. And you think, well, isn't centering and balance the same thing? And yes, they are interconnected. But you can teach them separately as well. Centering and then being on balance and off balance is a concept in and of itself. It is the mutual support among all parts that bring the whole together. So you can even talk symmetry, asymmetry, way off symmetry, really hanging over. What's pulling in opposition? So if you're playing with the idea of balance, you're really playing with counterbalance, aren't you? So that's a concept you want to bring in when you're talking about the element of balance, is counterbalance. And when we're standing, we're pushing into the floor because of gravity, but we're pushing up. And we have an oppositional pull. So I always like to bring in the concept of oppositional pull, because even if I'm reaching this way, if I'm pulling, I'll fall that way, or I have to have a oppositional pole to keep me balanced. So balance is another wonderful element. And then there's posture. Okay, seemingly to be the same thing again as our centering, but on posture we're looking at alignment. And the one thing that I want you to know about posture is that different dance forms may require different types of posture. And yes, when you're working here in the university, working with ballet, modern jazz, you're going to be looking for that plumb line, and you want to teach your students to recognize and understand the plumb line. So the plumb line means that if you had a ball hanging from a string and gravity's pulling on it and no other forces, how in the body, how does that drop in a straight plumb line, right? Everything falls gently underneath the plumb line. Also the way the skeleton, when you're at ease, your skeleton will have a slight opening and dropping, and the feet will slightly open too. That's that supine position. And so those are the anatomical postures. But in dance, how do we bring that together? Are we in turn down? Are we in parallel? Are we stacking the head? Is the chin out? Is the chin in? Are you lengthening the back of the neck? How are the shoulders? Are they relaxed into the shoulder girdle? The ribs are in, the back is wide, the abdominals are lifted, the tailbone is dropped, and you'll feel the weight going right over your instep, not on your heels, not forward into your toes. So there's a really important understanding of alignment that you need to be able to dissect and to be able to transfer to the students and teach it to them. And this is part of posture. Now, I had mentioned that posture is different in different dance forms, right? And so where does that exist, you're probably thinking? Well, where that exists is in ballroom dance, in rhythm forms. They really want to accentuate the arch of the lower back. And that is part of the posture in doing it correctly. And there's going to be other world dance forms that are out there that are going to have a different posture and maybe over. So you need to be respectful of the different postures. And when you are teaching, or when you have teachers who are teaching those different forms, you want to be true to that posture and teach that so that the movement in those areas looks correct. It's all about posture. Okay. The idea of gesture, and why would this be one of the basic elements that you're going to be looking at and working with in the classroom right off? Well, mostly because gesture is a universal language. You know, that when we do this to somebody, we all kind of understand that it's a greeting, right? So gesture can be very well understood. And it's movement that we all do, you know, like wait, you know, taxi or whatever. It's movements that we all do and can respond to and remember. So you can utilize gesture in the teaching to help them find the movement in the best way they can. Here, the definition of gesture is body shapes or movements that have an inherent meaning, can often have cultural implications. Gesture expresses or communicates ideas in a patterned move. Sometimes they'll come in with different movement gestures that are just normal to them, to their body types. They've picked them up, they've done it over years. It's become an integral pattern in the way they move or walk. And so if you're having them walk across the floor, you're going to see some different walks because those patterns have been laid down for their whole life, and it now is just something that they do unconsciously, right? And so you now have to bring them into a conscious place of identifying where they're going to put their weight, and how they're going to move. So walking can be looked at as somewhat of a gesture or gestural, and that's just one example. But you can utilize, and you are going to have to be utilizing different people's gestures as you're teaching your movement ideas. You may want to incorporate it, or you might just recognize their gesture and then be able to start thinking about how can I help them build another brain pattern. They can go back to that gesture when they want to, but how can I build something else for them to use when they're in class here? Okay, so being aware of that is important. Okay, the next is rhythm. Of course, you're going to be dealing with rhythm at every aspect of your class. The rhythm of your voice, of course, the rhythm of the music, the rhythm of your movement, which might have slightly different tones than the rhythm of the music that you select. Who knows? You may play with contrasting energies at some point in some of your more advanced classes. But rhythm is a constant in a classroom. And so the definition of rhythm is our hearts beat to a rhythm, our lungs breathe to another rhythm. Rhythm is essential for carrying the beat. Rhythm is the timing. I'm going slower now. I'm changing the rhythm. I'm going faster now. Here I'm speaking very, very fast, okay? So, you can think of that as tempo, right? But rhythm also has oftentimes a structure of timing. And we put rhythm into beats and groupings, 4/4, 3/4, 6/8, things of that nature. So we start to put it in that. But we do want them to learn their natural rhythm of their heart, their breathing, breath rhythm, and then as they key into those different rhythms around them, if you want to let them hear the clock, listen to the rhythm of the clock, or listen to the sound of this, or can you hear, the air conditioning kick in, or different things like that, or the rhythm of the excitement of the people outside of the classroom. Just key them into becoming very observant, very aware. Then bring them into also the beat and the music. Can you just hear the downbeat? Can you hear the boom, boom, the bass? You're trying to teach them to have a real sense and an understanding kinesthetically as well. See if you can get it into their bodies, because if it just stays up here in their brain, they're not going to be able to integrate it well into the dance. So Eurythmics is a wonderful educational process of teaching music as a bodily movement and intuition as a body intuition, right? And that's what we want from our dancers. We want them to sense it throughout their whole body, the rhythm, okay? Not that understanding it cognitively isn't good either. Both are excellent, so train both. Next is breathing. Breathing is crucial to dance. It brings in oxygen, but it also gives the movements fluency and harmony. A movement with breath has a controlled and considered extension of time, a clear beginning and an end. We have to breathe, but oftentimes you'll notice your dancers are thinking so hard that they stop breathing. So if you can develop ways to incorporate breathing into the teaching and the doing of the movement patterns, you'll find that as they're breathing, there'll be a release and an inhale and then a release into the movement. And that also kind of keys in with gravity and the pull of gravity and the release into, momentum. So they all kind of start playing with each other, and they can really help the student be more successful in movement if they can get their breathing to work with their doing the movement, okay? There's a wonderful quote here that I really love from John Muir. He says, "When one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it attached to the rest of the world." And I think that's wonderful when you're kind of making these connections in the dance class. The breathing is connected to this, and when you need to get that emphasis on that leg kick, and you exhale. And then you can make those connections out of class as well when you're running for that class, or when, or metaphors for life and for learning. Those are important as well, to find those in your classroom, so it becomes an enriching experience. I think it's wonderful what he's saying. If you can find these single things in nature or in dance, that you find that everything is attached to something else in the world, okay? Everything we do in dance is going to be attached to the rest of the world. And if you can find those things and bring them up occasionally in your classroom, you're not just helping the body become aware, educated, and sensitive, but you're allowing the person, the mind, as well. So enjoy, have a great day. Talk to you later.